Welcome everybody to Too Legit to Crit, a tabletop role-playing podcast made for people who think a balanced party is just four people holding different snacks, which I think is quite accurate.
I love that intro.
Thank you, I appreciate that. You know, I there was every now and again I'll go down and I'll do a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And then when I run out, it's like, oh, for fuck's sake, I'm going to spend like a couple of hours just kind of going. And I mean, the amount of times I must have repeated stuff over the years.
I think we've used Split the Party several times, but
Probably,
I love the snacks one.
So are you a snack sharer? Do you? Because
yeah, for the most part. Like it depends on like what kind of snacks we're talking about. But like, how do you not share snacks?
I mean, I'll do the whole. Anybody? No, okay. You know, I'll kind of feign the sort of desire to share, but
no, I'm a snack sharer. It a little bit of Zoop lore is I was a residential counselor for a year at it was a place that basically troubled like teen girls were placed there either by their parents because there were issues at home or by like the Department of Family and Children for like their protection or because something was going on at home. Like, so there were a couple different reasons why girls would be placed with us, but basically they lived with us, and you know, we as the counselors had to be like the people that showed them, you know, unconditional love, and at the same time like the people who showed them, you know, structure and like expectations and all of those things that they had like been missing in their lives. And doing that, you grow up quick and you learn things like how to lose at games and how to share your snacks and like all of these things, because you basically like I was like 21 and had children all of a sudden, teenage children to take care of.
I mean, it is a very sort of not very recognized profession. It should be more recognized than it is, because people who are in that sort of line of work, they are saints.
Oh my God, yes.
You know, just to kind of spend a huge portion of their time putting their own lives on hold just for some kids that they don't even know is just, I think it's wonderful. So
just the women that I worked with are, they were just so incredible and thoughtful, and you know.
So yeah, shout out to anyone in that profession from us.
Yeah, absolutely.
But anyway, let's get to it. My name is Juan Santana. Welcome to the show. As always, I've got my wonderful co-host with me, Zoop. This week, we do not have a Misfit. Misfit is elsewhere doing other things, but she will be back with us next week. Before we sort of get into the show, I just want to kind of remind everyone that if you like what you see today, just give us a like, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends about us, interact with us on social media. And if you're feeling really generous, just give us like a 5-star review wherever you're getting your podcast, because that will really, really help. Even if you don't like us, just 5-star review.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it can be insincere. We will take it.
I will DoorDash a pastry to your house.
Let's not say things that we can't do.
I mean, there's a lot of steps involved. You'd have to tell me who you are, that you don't like us, and where you live, and then I will DoorDash a pastry to your house.
Okay, so you heard it here, folks, that Zoop will DoorDash a pastry to your house if you genuinely do not like us and give us a 5-star review. That has to be, you know, you have to give us a compelling reason as to why you don't like us and as to why you have given us a 5-star review beyond getting a free pastry. Those are the terms and conditions of this particular deal.
Absolutely. Because we're all about self-improvement. So if you tell us why you don't like us, then I use it for self-improvement. And I thank you with a pastry.
Exactly. I'm just, I can see that becoming very expensive. No, just somebody who's never even seen us before going, yeah, I don't like the Spanish dude, but I want a pastry. So last week we started talking about world building. Just we were kind of going over general broad strokes. We talked about sort of settings that we enjoyed, and that we thought were very kind of well presented. And one of the things that we've spoken off camera about between the three of us is that you and Misfit haven't done a huge amount of world building. So
Yeah.
I feel that in order to kind of talk about this quite important facet of the hobby that we enjoy, I think we should start doing some world building. And I think we should do it on the show. And, we will create something. I don't know how long it's going to take. It might take months. It might take weeks. We don't know. We don't know how good it's going to be. We can't promise anything. But what I can guarantee is that we will end up with something to be able to begin a campaign with.
I will say, after our conversation last week about what world building is, because you really expanded my view on what world building is. And I thought a little bit about things that I have built that, according to the definition that you gave, do count as world building. I thought a little bit about that, but more than that, when I was talking to my partner, just listening to him, he runs a masks game for us, young adult superheroes. And he was telling me some of the background of some of the different other adult superheroes and the like. And I was just struck. And I think specifically because we'd had that conversation about how much world building he had put into it and thought about the stories of these characters and the like. So
it is something that creeps up on you in terms of how much you put into it, because, and at least in my case, and I suspect it's the case for a lot of GMs out there, that it becomes a thing of necessity.
Mm-hmm.
So, as an example, you create an NPC. That NPC is from a town, and it's like, shit, okay, I need a town.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you may just need a name of a town at the moment. Maybe enough to answer a few questions in case the conversation comes up, but okay, it then exists in the world. And then if the players, for whatever reason, approach that particular town, that's when you can kind of go, right, shit, I need to expand on this. And it just becomes a thing of necessity, especially if you're kind of slowly building as a campaign progresses.
Right. Yeah, he was telling me his whole story about he has an adult superhero named Alpha Man whose human name is Adam. Yes, that Adam. And he has a whole explanation of how Adam went from the first recorded Homo sapien, in the Bible, to who he is now. And I was sitting there wondering, did he come up with this all at once? Was this different pieces? Part of the world building did come up as we were talking, because I was like, oh, when was the last person that he was with? And he was like, oh, he lived with the indigenous folks of the Americas for a while. And I was like, oh, I thought he was, I imagined he was married to a Renaissance painter. And he was like, well, he was now.
Yeah, that's it. it's I don't, because I can't really speak for what traditional writing would look like.
Right.
But I have kind of seen sort of conversations with authors, and their whole process is okay, so we get the story and then we build the necessary parts into the story. This is, it seemed, at least for me, it's a lot more layered.
Mhm.
So, for example, the amount of times that we've been playing and we've been in a town and I've introduced them to somebody and they've gone, oh, what's that NPC's name? And I have nothing prepared. So I'll look around the room and just kind of go, and I'll make up a name.
Lamp McAllister.
I've done that before. I have done that before. Normally I will add a couple of syllables. So
Lampos McAllis.
Lamp could be Lizamp.
Lizamp. I love that.
Something like that. And, you just add. And so I have kind of come up with these NPC names on the fly. And they've been well received. The players have kind of liked them. And, so I've had to get my notes and just write, okay, Lizamp. And then I've had to kind of, like, with everything that I took, or that I came up with on the spot, make a note of that. And then the following session, I've got, Lizamp has a wife at home and he's got kids, and, he works as a lamplighter. That sort of thing. But that is all part of world building. But it is a sort of an unstructured chaos that you kind of meld into a structure.
Yeah. So do we decide our game first, or is our setting going to be game agnostic?
I think game agnostic.
Okay.
I think that we start with being system agnostic, because I think a lot of times when you introduce a system, you have a sort of subconscious sort of impulse to attach your setting to the game. So
that specific game. And a lot of games do require certain tweaks, like Apocalypse Keys.
Yeah.
Like there's already world building involved in that, you have a corporation and you have apocalypse people who have been through apocalyptic events that have been collected. You already have that. So okay.
Yeah, so I think just doing the setting and then we create this setting and then we can play with whatever system we want. So, like, for example, I was one of the backers of Tales of the Valiant.
Okay.
And one of the rewards that came out was they gave the backers an opportunity to pitch a world, which would end up in a book, and I did, and I won the right to sort of. So in I can't remember what book it is. It's something of the Labyrinth, Guide to the Labyrinth or something. You'll see my name, and I created a world, and the world was basically, it was a world very much like our own, which had suffered a cataclysm. Which had quite literally broken the planet into two separate parts. But instead of being completely destroyed, for some reason, those halves kind of stayed together in like an odd, constant sort of cosmic dance, I think is the words I actually used. And so it is like very much post-apocalyptic, and that was it. That was pretty much all the information, and that is in a Tales of the Valiant book. But I am now using...
Can you jump from one half to the other?
No idea.
Okay.
No idea, because I hadn't thought that far ahead. I pitched the idea, and what I've done is now I am using that world in a future series of campaigns I'm creating for Savage Worlds, where there are little pockets of civilization that have evolved thousands of years apart from each other. So I can pretty much use any setting I want in this shared world. So
as long as like the physics stay the same.
Yeah, so the first one I'm doing is basically a piracy campaign, but set in a sort of underwater 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea inspired sort of thing, because there's reasons, and but I have built on top of that where there, for some reason there is an underwater civilization. I'm being careful with what I'm saying because I don't want to give anyone any spoilers.
No spoilers.
But yeah, so that's it. But it was initially designed, or the idea was, for Tales of the Valiant. Are you just throwing stuff around?
No, my cat is really she's having a time right now.
I saw you kind of looking around. Is that how high she goes? Because
yeah, yeah. She whatever is up, like she tries to get to the highest point in my room.
Fair enough.
I was actually just looking. I think that there is a I think she's actually managed to free up some of the plaster on my ceiling.
Their cats are helpful. That's what they're there. So if you're ready, we can actually start this whole process. Misfit isn't with us today, but we have kind of reached out to Misfit and just kind of go, all right, give us your input, and we will use that as well. So I think the first thing that we need to think of is setting. I think we need the general setting and vibe of the campaign, which is everything will fall under this huge umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you thinking? What sort of settings do you enjoy?
Well, what kind of settings do I enjoy? I'm going to be so unhelpful and say I don't think that there is a setting that I've met that I don't enjoy, other than like historical fiction. I'm very bad at historical fiction because to me, the dinosaurs roamed the earth until the day I was born.
Fair enough. I'm sure. Yeah, that is fine.
I'm so bad at history.
No, I mean I am. To be fair, I'm terrible at history. I've got no idea. Which I always kind of shied away from certain settings because of that. So like
Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah, exactly. Anything that I feel I should have more knowledge on than I actually do, I always kind of shared away from it, especially something like set in the 1920s or the 1940s or something along those lines. It'd be like, yeah, I'm just going to show how ignorant I am.
Yeah, because I have no concept of like, I'm pretty sure they had cars in the 1920s because they had planes in the 1940s, didn't they?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they did. Of course they did. But there is, have you ever played Tales from the Loop?
I have not, but I want to.
So Tales from the Loop, they did a really good thing in their book, because their stories are very much sort of like the Stranger Things 80s vibe. And in the first couple of pages, they give you one page, which is, these are your touchstones. Mm-hmm. So it said, in the 80s, this is these are the songs that were popular in the 80s, and the list of like Madonna, Like a Prayer, blah, 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 blah. These are I thought it was really, really interesting. And I did that for my Impossible Landscapes campaign, which starts in 1995.
That is smart.
It was actually really, really helpful. And I had the players sort of picking up and using bits of that information.
I am going to be in a campaign. It's a short, I think maybe like 12 episodes, that is set in the 1980s. It's a Monster of the Week game. But what I'm really excited about is like there are expanded there are several expanded playbooks, and there's like 4 of them that involve time travelers, and I'm going to be playing one of those from the 2020s, who was thrown back in time to stop the apocalypse that came in the 2020s. But that way I don't actually have to pay attention to what was going on in the 80s, and I can just be like, what do you mean you don't have like what do you mean you don't have TikTok? How do you share little videos of each other?
There was actually, like, going completely off topic here. There's an author, I think he's Jason Parkin or something along those lines, whose like social media presence is very much like thought projects and stuff like that. And he came out and he said, let's take a look at the movie Austin Powers, which a lot of the comedy is based on this fish out of water sort of scenario where you've got someone who was kind of frozen in I think it's the 70s or the 60s,
Right.
and is brought back to life in the 90s. He said you could not do that today because we are now as far away from the 90s as the 90s was from the 60s when that movie came out.
Oh my god,
So
yeah.
you could not replicate or have the same sort of humor
Oh,
if
definitely
you were
not.
to freeze someone in the 90s and have them wake up today. Because, other than like advancements, everything was pretty much the same.
Right, right.
And I just made a lot of people feel old.
It's yeah, it's true.
So, setting. Let's get back to it.
Yes.
So your idea is anything but historical fiction.
Yes.
All right. I mean, that is. So would you kind of lean more towards like a sci-fi sort of space?
Think let's go sci-fi because I feel like fantasy it's too easy. Well, I mean, sci-fi it's very easy to fall into certain tropes too. But let's go sci-fi.
Okay, so going sci-fi, and I'm going to kind of bring up Misfit's message here when I
Yes.
said, what sort of settings and vibes do you like? She posted 4, and it was grimdark fantasy.
Grim, to be fair, it is grim, GRIMM, dark fantasy.
Ooh.
So
Could it be like Brothers Grimm?
that's what I mean, either it was a mistake of putting an extra M, or it is specifically like Brothers Grimm dark fantasy.
To be safe, let's consider both.
Okay.
All right, so we can either have like a grimdark fantasy a la Warhammer, or we can have grimdark fantasy, Jesus, as in the Brothers Grimm, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Freaky German fairy tales.
Sci fantasy. I'd see that a bit more as your sort of Starfinder.
Okay, yeah.
Dystopian could mean, dystopian's quite a wide sort of net.
Yes.
And then biopunk. That's a new one for me. That is a job for Google, I do believe.
Yeah, what is biopunk? Like, what does Google think biopunk is? Because what Google thinks biopunk is not necessarily what Misfit thinks biopunk is.
All right, maybe one and the same.
So dystopian implications of biotechnology, genetic engineering, and synthetic biology. Okay. Rather than mechanical cyberware.
All right, that's interesting. I'm just trying to think if there are any touchstones in regards to that. I mean, maybe on the wiki it might.
Let's ask the wiki. Biohackers. Oppressive organizations that engineer DNA. This might actually be dangerous because now I'm going to start asking like what they mean by engineering DNA. Do they mean just like
we've triggered the scientist?
Yeah. This might be a little.
Jesus Christ, she's going to put on a fucking lab coat.
Listen, I have a tie-dye lab coat somewhere around here.
A tie-dye lab coat?
Yeah.
Okay. That may need some explaining.
Yeah, well, so my first tie-dye lab coat was in AP chemistry, one of the last things that we did in AP chemistry to basically celebrate that we had gotten through the year, AP being advanced placement, which is there in the US there are AP tests that the idea is that you take the class, you take the test, and then you can skip the intro class in college. Okay. So it's supposed to be like it's supposed to be at the level of what an intro class in college would be. So, but at the end of it, we each got our own lab coats and we got to tie dye them.
Nice.
And mine went missing, because it's been years since I was in AP Chem. But then recently when I was in grad school, they were having a what was it? It was probably like an LGBTQ like get together for scientists, like queer scientists and the like. And one of the things that they had was a tie-dye station for lab coats. So I got to make a new tie-dye lab coat.
Nice. Fair enough. I think that's perfectly reasonable to have a tie-dye lab coat. So biopunk is interesting. I do, and that is interesting. I definitely agree with sci-fi.
Yeah.
So if we're talking sci-fi, are we keeping it while we're talking, because if we're talking sci-fi, we can go as far beyond as we want. Are we talking
Right. Are we staying on Earth or are we going into the stars?
A planet that needs yet to be named?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't have to be Earth. Or are we doing star travel? Are we doing, what do you think? Okay, I am actually making notes for once. I never normally do this.
Okay, let's go. So if we go dystopian star travel.
Ooh, okay.
Is star travel inherently dystopian? No, because
not
sometimes
necessarily.
it's actually people will lean towards utopian star travel.
Yeah, because you've got like people just. I think most, or at least most of the things I'm thinking of in terms of where star travel is, there is always a higher order.
Yeah.
Think the Empire in Star Wars. Think
I mean, Star Trek I would call utopian.
Star Trek would be more utopian. Star Wars, I wouldn't call Star Wars dystopian.
No, Star Wars isn't dystopian. Star Wars is oh shit, what is it? Spaghetti Western in space.
Yeah. Then you've got Foundation. So I forget the name of the sort of empire. But I think they call it Empire as well. Or
what is Foundation?
Foundation is a book series by Asimov. I want to say Asimov.
Oh, they've got okay.
Fantastic series on Apple TV and one of the greatest villains I have ever seen.
Let me add this to my. I keep making lists of like properties I want to see. So Foundation on Apple TV.
Yeah, Foundation on Apple TV. I mean, if you'd rather read the books, read the books. But the villain in that is just spectacular. And I'm not going to say anything else because I might spoil it.
Yeah.
But dystopia would be like an undesirable state of society.
Right. All right. I mean, like, I'm thinking like the Firefly universe is dystopian or utopian depending on who you're asking.
Yeah. So I think in that regard we'd have to kind of focus on the vibe of the campaign. So we could potentially do like a dystopian sci-fi involving space travel.
Mm-hmm. So, and then when we talk about space travel, what we have to clarify are planets involved. Are there any shows that are entirely space travel, never touching on planets?
I can't think of any immediately.
You would have to, okay, because planets, if we assume, okay, if humans go to space, but we can't find other aliens, so it's just humans in space because we fucked up Earth, that means that planets would be mostly used for mining resources, which we would then take to space to refine. And it would be easier to get material from asteroids than planets.
Makes sense.
So one of the problems with me when it comes to world building is I become too logical.
No, I mean, yeah, I get that, but sometimes you do need the logic. But what I would recommend is keep that logic until it's needed.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times the best way to do it is just kind of go, right, this is what I want to create. I want to create this world, and in this world, everything is giant and everything is pink for some reason. That's what you want to create. Fantastic. That is when, further down the line, when it's time to get into the nitty gritty, that's when you start going, why is everything big? Why is everything giant? What implications do those things have? So, like you asked earlier, I said, can you leap from one, like when I was talking about that world that I kind of thought of?
Yeah.
Can you leap from one side to the other? I don't know. I'll get there. That will be a later conversation to have.
I'm trying to put giant and pink and dystopian space travel together, and that might be doing a little too much.
Fair enough. But I mean, I'm like, so I mean, right now I've got written down sci-fi and dystopian. We haven't really settled on space travel.
Right.
But we could potentially have it on a planet and have space travel possible.
What if it's more like a Jupiter planet in the number of moons Jupiter has?
Okay, so we can build our society on these moons.
Yeah, so it's think of Earth in terms of just like one group of humans, humanoids. We're going to call them humans because if we have to start calling them by a whole different race, like that'll be a big difficulty. But their space travel really only goes as far as the moons of the planet, because the moons themselves can have pretty interesting stuff going on.
So what we could say, right? Here we go. So Earth is destroyed. Earth is destroyed, and the nearest habitable, and stay with me, don't start asking too many questions.
Okay.
The nearest habitable place would be the moons of Jupiter.
Okay.
All right. We will find a reason for that, but we don't know that yet. But the moons of Jupiter are the next step, and that is where people have created this society where people live on the moons. People live on these different moons and they travel between them. Because that way we don't have to worry too much about stuff like faster than light travel. We can keep it
exactly.
We can pretty much keep it grounded, because an issue that is just occurring to me, if we were to do dystopian with like out in the stars, we could encounter different planets that weren't dystopian. And
right, exactly.
So if we kind of keep it to like a dystopian sort of interstellar science fiction campaign where we have people living on the moons of Jupiter.
But they can't go onto Jupiter itself because Jupiter is a giant gas planet.
Maybe the reason that they are on the moons of Jupiter is because they are exploiting Jupiter as a power source.
Yes.
See this. I'm glad I can finally share this excitement with other people, because normally it's just me sat alone going, "Oh fucking yes!" Jupiter moons, so Jupiter.
Okay.
All right,
Yep.
so Jupiter as power source. All right, so we have essentially the foundations of our world building. So we have dystopian. What else did Misfit write? Okay, so we have dystopian. So so we will, at some point further down the line, we will start creating something a lot more specific. We'll pick one of the moons of Jupiter. We'll pick a region of the moon of Jupiter, and we will kind of start there. But our initial sort of setting is that a society that is built on the moons of Jupiter. Now, are they in like a fixed orbit, so the space between them always remains the same?
Oh, that is a good question. To the
Because I mean that
orbits.
that could also have massive implications for the campaign. So if you've got two regions that don't like each other, when they come closer together, it breaks out into war.
Okay, it does say yes, the orbits of Jupiter's moons can intersect, particularly among the numerous smaller outer moons.
Hmm.
However, the major Gallian moons, Iopa, Europa, Ganymede, how do you pronounce that?
Ganymede?
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah, I would have thought. Yeah, I would imagine so.
And Callisto generally maintain distinct stable paths governed by an orbital resonance, avoiding collisions despite the close proximity of their orbits. So their orbits are close,
Hmm.
but that doesn't like they could one of them could be going at a faster speed than another.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
interesting. So similar orbits. Okay. I mean, to be fair, we're saying all this, but it doesn't necessarily have to be Jupiter. It doesn't necessarily have to be the moons of Jupiter. We can be moons surrounding another gas planet.
but okay,
Oh.
okay.
Hmm.
So imagine this.
Okay.
Also, I am relearning. I had known this before, but actually, our solar system is very close to that of a flat disk because all of just because of the way that it was formed, like all of the planets have very like parallel, or what is the word that this person used? Ecliptic
Hmm.
um spins.
Okay.
So, but what if, right? So there's Earth.
Hmm.
Something big hits Earth, cracks it into two
Okay.
or three or four, and part of that is thrown into space and ends up as another moon of Jupiter.
Ooh. Okay.
And so from there, whichever part of the planet that was, from there, then they're like, shit, what do we do? But they're like, oh, Jupiter has all the gas. Like, we've solved all the energy needs
Hmm.
that we have now. And so it's got to have included Florida.
Okay. Because of Cape Canaveral.
Yeah.
Good thinking. All right. Okay. Included Florida because of Cape Canaveral. All right. Yep. So yeah, that would. I mean, and then we can think of how people survive that.
Yeah.
You know how people kind of survive that sort of cataclysm. Um, but that is something down the line. How did they? I'm gonna
And
right.
of course, it's a dystopian because the Florida man. Do you guys hear about Florida men over?
There was a moment when there was a lot of like Google searches involving Florida man.
Yeah,
Hmm.
like the Florida man, Florida woman, Florida woman gets ticket for skateboarding with crocodile, um, you know, taking selfie videos for her music video, so on and so forth. So like of course they ended up creating a very dystopian future.
So yeah, maybe. I mean, like maybe the cataclysm that eventually ruptured the world was known about in advance, and they,
Yes.
NASA and all the world leaders tried to protect the world, and it didn't quite play out, except for a large chunk of the Earth, which is now as a moon.
Yeah. So I think they probably jettisoned some of the richest people off before the planet was hit.
Yeah.
I think I like that if it's kind of like the southeast or like the southern part of the US, there's like a great Latin influence.
So that could be your dystopia then. You have world is going to get destroyed. Okay, you have a lot of world leaders that are trying to come up with a way to kind of protect the world, but a lot of the sort of more elite and rich, they don't believe it's going to work, so they jettison and they go to, let's say, hypothetically speaking, Ganymede.
Yeah.
And they start building their society there, where they can siphon some of the energy coming from Jupiter to kind of preserve their sort of species, as it were. But lo and behold, the plan to a certain degree works.
Yeah.
And now you have this rich elite that have created this society surrounding Jupiter. All of a sudden, you are joined by the people that you left behind to die.
Yes.
And that can create your sort of conflict, because all of a sudden you've got a group of a few, I don't know, let's say million people that you didn't account for.
So this leads me to something interesting, which may just be a side tangent that we can, just briefly think about and then let go of. But I feel like the elite, when they plan their space travel, they don't take a lot of time to consider who's going to do all the manual work.
Okay.
Like, right? Like if they build a ship, okay. Yeah. You look like you had a thought.
I did. I'm going to wait for you to finish first.
Okay, if they build a ship and they put 50 billion millions and billionaires on there, and nobody else, who now is in charge of taking care of the poop?
Clones.
Jeez.
Lab-grown, a species of lab-grown people.
Oh my god. So instead of just taking people from Earth, they're like, oh no, we would rather just have clones of ourselves that we then dominate.
Not necessarily clones of themselves, just clones in general. Just like they've created a new species. They have created a group of people which will be subservient, which will be that won't argue, that won't question, that won't think. They will just do. Because the last thing you want is don't want to be taking people that want rights.
We have to be careful. We have to be careful here because race plays a weird role in this.
Not if they are just a lab generated group of people. We can, we don't have to attach race to any of it.
Okay.
And in the elite's mind, that is their way of eliminating racism, by just taking the people, these created people, these sort of bioengineered.
They have bioengineered the people to photosynthesize.
Interesting.
So that they don't have to feed them.
Plant people. Yes. Writing plant people down.
So all of these people have a greenish hue to them. All the clones have a greenish hue to them.
Yeah, they've got like a pale green complexion. They don't have any real sort of features.
Yeah.
They just got this sort of pale green sort of complexion. No sort of hair color or hair, for that matter. They are
it's kudzu. Well, you don't know what kudzu is. Okay.
No idea.
So kudzu is a plant that's taking over a lot of the South. And basically what you see is, because it'll like grow up on buildings and then destroy the building underneath. So you'll see this ghost landscape of just kudzu, of what used to be under it.
Is it KUDZU?
Yes.
I know that they're selling kudzu root capsules, apparently. Okay, all right. So that's, what better way to just bioengineer? You create a semi-intelligent,
and it makes sense because this is, they're in the South, right? And it's an invasive perennial vine from Asia known as the vine that ate the South. So they take that
Mm.
that that like ability to like the invasive growing, able to take things, they stick, they mix that with humans to create these plant people that are made of kudzu.
And that is their working class.
Yeah.
That is what they take. And the thing is, because these people probably don't reproduce normally, they're effectively grown, they don't have to take them with them when they first sort of jettison away from Earth.
Yeah.
They just take a sample. And when they get there, that is when they've already built their space stations, they've already built their sort of places to live on the moon, because that was probably a plan that they had anyway.
And so I think some of the people that are fighting against the dystopia are the scientists that because they needed some scientists and engineers, right?
Yeah.
And so they sell these scientists and engineers on the idea that you're going to come with the global elite to live on, the moon and stuff, and then they get there and they realize that you know they're there to create these green living plant people, and then they're going to be like discarded like yesterday's trash.
Yeah, and then you have a remnant of the planet that you've left behind,
Yep.
which has a limited amount of survivors who are
And they have to flee to that
understandably pissed off.
Yeah.
They're running out of resources because that will only give them a limited amount, and they have to sort of fend for themselves and try and take some of the resources from Ganymede whilst trying to overthrow this rich elite and perhaps get these kudzu people on side with them.
Yeah.
So we have actually included biopunk into our thing.
Wait, so we got biopunk, dystopian, and sci-fi fantasy. How can we bring grim dark fantasy into this?
Oh, we can make it grim dark.
Wait, do you mean grim dark or do you mean grim?
I think grim dark may be a bit hard to do, but I think we can make it quite grim and quite sort of dark. But that's that. I think by default that's already sounding pretty dark.
That is
already sounding pretty dark, but you would then. I'm liking it. I am actually quite liking this. So
I think we may have accidentally made something amazing.
But this is the excitement that I get when things start falling into place. You get this idea and just kind of go, oh wow, that really works. And you get this sort of elation, this sort of level of excitement.
Yeah.
Knowing that you have created something. And I think this is definitely something that I'm going to spend the next sort of week writing up, just so we have essentially the foundation of the quote-unquote world that we're playing in.
There is on universetoday.com, there is an article from 2016, How Do We Settle on Jupiter's Moons?
See? It's already happening. We're going to be like The Simpsons where we predict the future. It's already happening. They're already one step ahead of us. We're just figuring this out. If you're watching
we're thinking of an interesting way to get there.
If you see this in the future and something happens to us,
because They figured out we're on their tail.
I am a very, very careful person. I'm looking after my health. I am very much excited about the future. I do not have any
I
sort of.
always hold the handrails when I go down the stairs.
I don't have a driving license, and I look both ways when I cross the street.
I don't drink.
I do not have any sort of inclination to not progress in my life.
I am well medicated.
I'm 100% well medicated. Do not drink. I do not do any sort of mind-altering substances. Just so you're aware, if Misfit is doing this show alone next week, ask where we are. Ask the important question.
Oh man, there is actually a whole bunch of touchstones that we can look at about this. It says there is Robert A. Heinlein wrote a novel, Farmer in the Sky, centers on a teenage boy and his family moving to Ganymede.
Okay, I'm just writing these things down.
Yeah. Paul Anderson published a novella titled The Snows of Ganymede. In Arthur C. Clarke's Space Odyssey series, the moon of Europa plays a central role. That's less interesting because there's an ancient race of advanced aliens involved in that. In 2061, Odyssey 3, Clarke also mentions how Lucifer's warmth has caused Ganymede's surface to partially sublimate, creating a large equatorial lake.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
Isaac Asimov.
So do you think the elites have terraformed Ganymede?
They've started to.
Interesting.
It depends on how far into all of this we want to be. Are they still in the process of establishing everything, or is this well past that?
I think this is well past that. This is
well past that. Then they have. Then they've definitely terraformed.
I think the cataclysm has happened. Maybe 50, 60 years.
It's got to be at least 100.
Yes, the elites. So we'll do it a quick timeline. Elites find out that, or the world finds out that it is doomed. It's got 150 years left on the clock, for example. So things start happening. You've got the greatest minds of the world. They think of, right, how do we survive this? What can we do to survive it? Whilst the elite are like, we can't see that happening. That is not going to happen. We need to preserve. So they go and fund with some crazy, potentially white supremacist, very rich person who does space travel. No relation to any existing person.
No. His name is Telon
Milon Husk. They have a plan of their own, and in the interim, while this 150 years is kind of happening, they make a plan to terraform Ganymede and make it a nice place to live. They find ways to extract the power from Jupiter to fuel this thing. They create a race of beings to act as their servants.
Yeah.
They then jettison. They then head out. And 50 years later, the cataclysm hits. For some reason, something happened that it doesn't save the Earth. It just saves a small portion of it, which then flies off and becomes another of Jupiter's moons.
Yeah.
So then you immediately have two bands of people. You've got people, the refugees from Earth, who have created their own society, and then you've got the elite, which have their own society.
Okay.
And in order for the Earth society to survive, they have to incur on the elites, and they have to steal from them, in a way.
What I like about the way that you have just positioned it, because I was originally thinking like it separated, and then because there was already space like materials on in Florida, like it had to be Florida. But what I like about the way that you've positioned this is that any GM can choose which part of Earth falls off. So like, you know, a Filipino GM who is like very familiar with the Philippines, that can be the part that went. You know, somebody who is in Estonia can, like, you know, it can be that area, you know.
Yeah.
Someone in South Africa, or who's very interested in like the South African, like the issues going on there, like that could be the place.
Yeah, 100%. And also, you know, it could be they realized a couple of years before everything happened that they weren't going to be able to save the entirety of Earth. They were only going to be able to save a portion of it. And they did this mass evacuation where billions of people ended up in one part of the planet. So then when they kind of arrive, for want of a better word, after however long it takes to travel from one to the other, and they enter the Jupiter's orbit, they're overpopulated.
Oh.
You know, it's an overpopulation, and they have to fight to survive, and they have to go on and that is when we can add the dark sort of element to it.
Yeah, so there's like several ways to go about it, and I like that this setting could be written in a way that it can truly be customized. The part of Earth that comes, and what the quality of what is going on Earth,
and what culture goes with it. Like if you watch Firefly, a lot of the sort of culture that in the story of that show, a lot of the culture that has kind of become predominant is very much sort of Eastern culture.
Yeah.
So, you know, you GM this and you can kind of bring it however you want. And I think
exactly,
if we leave that purposely blank, that would be ideal.
So, you know, we're gonna pull Misfit in here to start thinking about like the next step of building this, right?
So I think we've got the world. So then I think the next step would be a bit more. I think we still need to kind of focus in on this and start having a look at what society looks like.
Yeah. Start crafting some examples.
Which in turn will inform the style of game this will be. You know, because I've already said sort of overpopulated sort of region, which will be the sort of new Earth, and we'll come up with names, and you know, we'll come up with names for the subservient race that was created. We'll come up with a name for the elites, the ones that jettisoned. We'll also come up with a name for the people that against all odds survived, and what sort of society each place created.
Amazing.
And I think there's some legs to this. I think this is something that we've started doing it as a bit of a project to give us something to talk about. But I think at the end of this, we're gonna go, I want to play in this.
We're gonna make. I feel like we're gonna make a system agnostic settings book.
Yeah.
At the end of this,
I think so, because I'm gonna start typing some of this down.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna send it to you both, see what you think, and if there's any revisions you need to make, please do. And I think we will create. I think we're creating something.
So these kudzu clones, if there are any artists out there that already have an idea of what this kudzu clone looks like, start drawing.
We have an artist.
Ooh!
Misfit.
That's true.
We
Misfit.
have an Misfit.
If you're listening to this, start drawing us some kudzu clones.
Yeah, we need to. Yeah, I'll come up with Yeah.
Yeah.
I like kudzu. I do. I mean, I would be happy to just leave it at kudzu. They have the kudzu.
They are the kudzu. Amazing.
All right.
Oh, that
So
works in so many ways.
I think we've done a lot of work today. So I think it's
I think
about
so
time
too.
we kind of bring this to
Whew.
a close. And I think this is a good thing to kind of go forward with. And, you know, it's going to spark a lot of conversation. It's going to spark a lot of topics of debate. So, yeah, if you guys want to kind of follow along for the ride, again, we've got no necessarily end date on this.
Yeah.
So it could take us a long time. It could take us, I don't know. We don't know. This is kind of uncharted
We're just
territory.
very excited right now.
And
Listen.
yeah, and if you want to kind of join us for the ride, then please do. And, you know, tell your friends about us. Subscribe to the channel, like, subscribe, leave reviews, and leave us your thoughts, most importantly, because we want to kind of hear what you think, and maybe you can suggest something that we go, oh shit, that's a really good idea.
Yeah, what is your favorite moon of Jupiter?
And I will say, and I'll say this now, not knowing what the future holds, but if we do use your idea and we do end up making something out of it, you will be added to the credits.
Absolutely.
All right. Zoop, do you wanna tell people about you and
yeah, hi. I'm Zoop. My mom calls me Supriya. This was so much fun. In the meantime, if you like other places that you can find me, Game Master Monday. I am a co-GM there, did the Pride Month games. Rat City is coming out. I play Anand, a rat, and that's all I'm going to tell you about that right now, but it is called Rat City by Night, if that tells you anything. And just, I don't know, there's fun stuff. Check out suitmachine.card.co. I will update that at some point and it will have newer information. And let me know if you want to brainstorm something together.
Yeah, I mean, I've thoroughly enjoyed this and it's been absolutely fantastic. Can't wait to get Misfit on the show because it's just going to be, we're going to add that sort of element of chaos that we desperately need. And it's going to be absolutely fantastic. If you want to kind of catch up on what we're doing, give us a follow on social media at Too Legit to Crit. On others, I'm at Natural Juan. I can't remember which is which, but just come and say hi. All right. I want to say thank you to the Dungeon Maestro for the use of our theme tune, all that jazz. Go check out their stuff on YouTube. They are absolutely amazing and so talented. So yeah, please go do that. And I think lastly, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has taken time out of their busy day to listen to us waffle on about world building and tabletop role-playing games. Thank you very much. Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.